Hello everybody, welcome back to another true crime video. Today's case, I'm gonna warn you, is definitely heavy. It is quite dark and really sad. So please, viewer discretion is advised. Today's video is going to be on Andrea Yates. It does mention mental health and a whole wide variety of mental health. So please, if that's something that triggers you, please be warned. Who was Andrea Yates? Andrea Kennedy was born on July 2nd, 1964. She was born in Hallsville, Texas, and was the youngest of 5 children. Andrea suffered an eating disorder in her teenage years. She also suffered from depression. Andrea graduated from Milby High School in 1982. She was known to be a stellar student. She was class valedictorian, captain of a swim team, and also an officer in the National Honor Society. She completed a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston and graduated in 1986 from the University of Texas School of Nursing. She worked as a registered nurse at the University of Texas from 1986 until 1994. Andrea met a man named Rusty Yates, both aged 25, and they met at their apartment complex in Houston. Andrea, who is usually reserved, initiated the conversation. She hadn't dated until she turned 23, and before meeting Rusty, she was recovering from a broken relationship. They eventually moved in together and spent much of their time in religious studies and prayer. At their marriage, on April 17, 1993, they told their guests that they planned on having as many children as nature provided. They bought a 4-bedroom house in Friendswood, Texas. They had their first child, Noah. He was born in February 1994, just before Rusty accepted a job offer in Florida, so they relocated to a small trailer in Seminole. Andrea stopped jogging and swimming when she became pregnant with her second child. Friends said that she had become more reclusive. After their third child in 1977, they returned to Houston and lived in a trailer because Rusty wanted to live light. The next year, Rusty purchased a 350-square-foot renovated bus as their permanent home. At this point, they had 4 children and the living conditions were cramped. Rusty left the bus house every day for work, leaving Andrea with just herself and the children in the confined space. Her isolation appeared to increase after they decided to homeschool their children. She homeschooled her children in the small bus house, and this left her with no time to herself. After her 4th child, Luke, Yates did become depressed, and on June 16, 1999, Rusty found her shaking and chewing her fingers. The next day, she attempted to commit suicide by overdosing on pills. She was admitted to the hospital and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, she begged Rusty to let her die as she held a knife up to her neck. Once again hospitalized, she was given a cocktail of medications. She was prescribed antipsychotic drugs and her condition immediately improved. After that, Rusty moved the family into a small house for the sake of her health. Somebody who did leave a big impact on Andrea was Michael Warnecki. Rusty had purchased their bus home from Michael Warnecki, and he was a traveling minister whose religious views influenced Rusty and Andrea. Rusty agreed with only some of his ideas, but Andrea embraced even the most extreme. He preached that a woman's role was derived from the sin of Eve, and that bad mothers who were bound for hell create bad children who also go to hell. This ideology stayed with Andrea. This added more pressure, as she always wanted to be a good mother, so her children did not go to hell. She wasn't taking any of her prescribed medication. She began to hurt herself and refused to feed herself or her children because she felt like they were eating too much. Andrea started to hallucinate. She thought there were video cameras in the ceilings and that the characters on television were talking to her and her children. In the year of 1999, Yates suffered another nervous breakdown, which accumulated in 2 suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations that summer. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Doctors urged that her and Rusty should not have any more children, as it would guarantee future psychotic depression. However, approximately 7 weeks after her discharge, they conceived their 5th and final child. She stopped taking her antipsychosis medication in March 2000 and gave birth to her daughter Mary on November 30th, 2000. She seemed to be coping well until the death of her father on March 12th, 2001. She stopped talking, refused liquids, and mutilated herself, and she would not feed Mary. She also frantically read the Bible. Andrea's psychiatrist warned Rusty to never leave his wife alone with the children because she might do something, but Rusty ignored the psychiatrist's advice and left Andrea on her own for hours with the children. He claimed that he didn't want Andrea to rely on him and he wanted her to become more independent. Her condition kept getting worse and worse. She was admitted to Devereux Treatment Network, and there she was given a new doctor, Dr. Mohammed Saeed. He briefly gave her the antipsychotic drug Haldol, which was the medication that helped Andrea recover in 1999. He then took her off the drug, saying that she did not seem psychotic, and gave her other medication. On May 3, 2001, she was back in her near catatonic state. She had filled the bathtub in the middle of the day. She was hospitalized on May 4, 2001. Her psychiatrist determined that she was probably just suicidal and had filled the tub to drown herself. She was released 10 days after, on May 14, 2001. On June 4, 2001, Dr. Mohammed tells Andrea to taper off Haldol over the next 3 days. June 7, 2001 is the last time Andrea takes Haldol. On June 18, 2001, Andrea and Russell have a follow-up visit with the doctor, and Russell reports that she is not improving. She continued under the doctor's care until June 20, 2001. June 20, 2001 was when tragedy struck. Rusty left for work, leaving Andrea alone with the children, against the instructions of the doctors, who advised that Andrea must be supervised around the clock. Rusty's mother was supposed to arrive 1 hour after he left to take care of her, but in that space of 1 hour, Andrea Yates drowned all of her 5 children in a bathtub. Andrea started with John, Paul, and Luke, and laid them all in her bed. She then drowned Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Noah came in and asked what was wrong with Mary. He then quickly turned and ran away. However, Andrea caught up with him. As he screamed, she dragged him and forced him into the tub. He put up a fight, coming up for air twice. However, she drowned him. She left Noah's body in the tub, and she brought Mary to the bed and laid her in the arms of her brothers. She then called the police, repeatedly saying how she needed an officer but would not say why. She then called Rusty and told him to come home straight away. During Andrea's confession, she explained her actions by saying that she wasn't a good mother and that her children were not developing correctly. She told Dr. Michael Wellner that she had waited for her husband to leave for work that morning. She knew that he would prevent her from harming them. Andrea had also locked the dog up in its cage to prevent it from interfering. Remember on May 3, 2001, when she had filled the bathtub in the middle of the day? She later confessed to police that she had actually planned to drown the children that day as well, but decided against doing it. She had allegedly been planning to kill her own children for 2 years, and she kept trying to end her own life so she wouldn't harm her children. Throughout the trial, Rusty stood by his wife, claiming it was the illness and not Yates that had killed the children. She pleaded innocence by the reason of insanity, citing that it was due to her postpartum psychosis. The defense expert testimony agreed that Andrea was psychotic, but the Texas law requires that in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must be able to prove that he or she cannot distinguish right from wrong at the time of the crime. In her very controversial 2002 trial, the jury found Andrea guilty of capital murder. But rather than the death penalty, they voted for life in prison. Andrea would have been eligible for parole in 2041, at the age of 77. Rusty divorced her during her incarceration in 2004 and remarried in 2006. On January 6, 2005, the Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions. They had a retrial due to false information. And on July 26 of 2006, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was committed to a North Texas state hospital. And in 2007, she was transferred to Kerrville State Hospital. The aim of the hospital is to help her with her mental illness, and hopefully she recovers. When she's healthy enough, she might return back to the community. Well, that is the end of today's video. Comment down your thoughts on what you think of this case and also if I covered it well. Thanks so much, and make sure you subscribe for more. Bye!